Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Natasha Carroll. She is a real estate broker, and she has worked in real estate in many different ways. And Natasha, you have you've come at this with a philosophy that you've developed because of the journey that you have gone through. Can you just explain a little bit about your journey and why real estate and how you help people? That would be fabulous.
Thank you, Lois, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast. My journey in real estate started basically as an investor, right? I never got into the business to sell homes. I got in the business to purchase homes. And as I began to purchase homes, my first investment property was something that I got involved and was super excited about. And believe it or not, along that journey, I purchased a home that ended up being, I paid more money for it than it was actually worth because I was trusting someone else to help me with the purchase. And it was right around when the market crashed, fear set in and a lot of people were thinking about selling in 2007 and 8. And I thought, let me just check and see what it was about to sell the home. And then I realized the home wasn't even worth as much that I had paid for it. Mind you, it could have been like $10,000 less because the market had crashed, but it was way less than that, probably like $40,000. And during that time, I realized, you know what? I really need to learn real estate for myself, not trust an agent, not trust a lender, needing to learn the process. And so that was how I really started to realize I can go beyond an investor. And this experience, I didn't want it to happen to anyone else. And I got my real estate license after that.
Wow, isn't that remarkable? So many times we do blindly trust the experts and then find ourselves quite sorry that we did that. So tell me, having gone through that experience, what should people look for in a real estate agent? And how do you choose and sort between all those voices out there?
Yeah. I mean, when you're thinking about working with a realtor, one, you need to think about someone who's invested time and education in this business. You want to definitely look for someone who's full-time, not someone who's talking to you. Ask them to explain to you their processes and how they work. Mm-hmm. Not just that, you want to make sure a lot of this business is communication, Lois, back and forth conversation. When are they going to communicate with you? What's their timelines of communication? Do they understand how you prefer to be communicated with? What's their process with buying or selling a home? And not just that, don't be afraid to ask for references, right? Because the greatest benefit you can ever receive for really understanding your realtor is to talk to the people that they work with. And if they've had great relationships, they don't mind giving you referrals. And I personally will hand out at least 10 people for someone to call, whether it's a group of investors or buyers or sellers that I have helped. I have a good relationship with pretty much all of my clients. Yeah.
Wow. So doing your homework and really finding out who those people are. So tell me, when you work with a person who is in the process of buying a property, you talk a lot about relationship and being authentic. Explain that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So when I'm working with someone who's actually looking to buy, I never really talk to them in the beginning about the purchase. Because the purchase, to me, you're going to live the purchase. Really, it's about the relationship. And I sit down and at least get to know them. If they're married, I like to talk to them as a couple. I like to understand their kids. Is this a short-term purchase? I really like to understand what they want to do. What are their hobbies? Where do they want their kids to grow up? How do they want to be in master plan communities, and just who they are as a person? And I found that most of the people when I meet with, they always tell me nobody goes into that much detail of really understanding us. The first question they asked us is, what's your price range? And do you want to start buying? To me, that's like the after fact, right? Because I've helped people buy a house and then they come back and tell me, oh, my kids don't like it, because you never got the time to really know the family, to understand who they are and how they need to live in a home. And taking that time and doing that up front, it kind of helps people understand you are really into them and really wanting to know them more than just the purchase of the home. Yeah.
Okay. So do you worry about the time that that's going to take?
Not really. I guess for me, I'm an investor, not just a broker. So it's a big difference when you own homes yourself and it doesn't take that long to build that relationship. Honestly, I have a client, I'm relocating from Montana. They flew in town just only once, and I've been looking for them and help put an offer on the house. It's that one visit, conversations while we're walking, and follow-up conversations with him and his wife. And I've learned more about them and their kids. And I learned the most critical component that helped with the sale, that they're horse people. Horse people.
Oh, okay.
So having a property that you can actually get horses on eventually, it really made them excited. And that's why they chose the home, because I took time to understand that component of their lifestyle.
Isn't that interesting? Because you would think that people would have a list, and they would think these are the things we're looking for. But also in today's world, and depends on the marketplace, some of the markets are so hot and properties are moving so quickly that I think it's become a commodity, just an exchange. And so people are missing some of that.
I would say they are, because it's right now they're so eager. As soon as a house comes on the market, Lois, I mean, it can be gone in like a couple of hours with 20 plus offers. So the fact that I had a conversation with them and dug deeper into their hobbies made me realize, oh, you know what? I can actually go and look for some homes for them and send them, because sometimes what they think they want may not be always what they need, right? And little did I know, you eventually want to have 5 horses, buying a house just on a little piece of land, not having enough room, and then having to sell it later. It's not going to happen right now in this market. So I think it's just taking that extra time with them to make sure you're clear on what they need, not just what they want.
Wow. So what's really fun about that is, it is a huge investment for many people. That's one of their probably largest investments they'll make in their life. So having somebody who really takes that seriously is lovely. So tell me, what do you get the greatest joy out of as a real estate broker?
I think the greatest joy for me, believe it or not, is meeting different people and understanding their journey. I guess I love to get to know different people and how they come to be who they are and where they're trying to go in life. And their home is, believe it or not, is an extension of that, right? I mean, I've met people who are musicians and then they like to practice in their home, so they need something different. I met people who actually have helped them, their daughter's trying to be a gymnast. So how important it is to have a 3-car garage just to be able to do gymnastics and practice. So I think for me, it's been about understanding people and getting to know them, as well as getting to understand how building houses in general have changed over time and what people needed before and what they need now, especially with the pandemic. Everybody's looking for office space and more rooms. So it's just been interesting how houses have been built and changed and how people are living in them and getting to know their journey.
You know, it is true. Our needs have changed, haven't they?
Yeah. I think they've changed way beyond what we ever expected. It's not even that. There's a trend now, Lois, where a lot of people are moving in their family, their elderly parents and stuff. So that has been a big trend I've seen happen in the last couple of years. Everybody I know who's upgrading want 2 masters, at least for the option for their parents to move in as well.
And is that because of COVID, or did that start happening before COVID?
I think it started happening before COVID, but it's happening more now. I think it's really happening more. I've had the house with my out-of-state clients. It's a bigger home than they had expected to purchase, but they decided if they're moving to Texas, they may move their parents in as they're aging. So that was another critical component.
So if you're let's look at from a buyer's standpoint and then from a seller's standpoint, what are some of the biggest mistakes that a person can make?
Yeah, I think from a buyer's perspective, when someone is purchasing a home, one of the mistakes I've seen people make, they're so excited about getting a home and they don't spend time focusing on, I would say, one of the things that they need. The other thing I've seen buyers, they're so excited about purchasing a home, they don't focus on their budget. Right? You really need to stay within your budget because you're not living the house when you're a buyer, you're living the mortgage. It's very critical for people to understand that, right? And for me, I don't want anyone to go in a home and they're stressed out because they really can't afford it, right? You may have a luxury house, but if you can't afford it, you're not going to enjoy it. Another mistake buyers make, I would say, they're more focused on amenities that are in neighborhoods. And sometimes I ask them, do you really think you're going to use this? Do you really need to be in this neighborhood? Because that exact house may be somewhere else at a cheaper price, but they need to think through those things, right? So from a buyer's perspective, I think those are things buyers make mistakes on. And the whole thing around the budget is probably the most critical one that they have challenges with. Yeah.
I think with the budget piece, for a long time, people were always encouraged to put a sizable portion of their income into their mortgage as a investment, right? And so it's refreshing to hear you say to look at your budget and look at how it fits into that budget.
Yeah, I would say it's most important because again, I'm a firm believer. You don't live the house, you live the mortgage. And when you have a perspective, being an investor for me, I guess I want people to enjoy their home, but also be able to enjoy their lifestyle and with their kids. And I've seen, and you aware of this in 2007 when the market crashed, so many people were overextended. They lost their homes, right? It wasn't just that the market crashed. They couldn't afford the things that they had before. Now, yes, the market has dipped up and down, but in the United States today, there are more homeowners, according to many of the people out there are stating that there are more homeowners who have more equity in their homes today. So they have that flexibility to move and upgrade that they didn't have in 2007 and 2008. So I think they got very wise and lived within their budget and then also paid their bills off, which gives them more flexibility today to move. Yeah.
That's great. So how about from a seller's perspective? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you
I think from a seller's perspective, let's just say this up front, we all think our homes are the best. So from a seller's perspective, I think they just do this internet research. And they have in their mind how much they believe their home is worth, right? They don't realize is that when your home gets ready to go on the market, it's not what you believe that it's worth. It's what the market believes that it's worth. And even in this crazy seller's market today, yeah, people are giving you above ask price, but what you think above is going to be different. You still have to compare what is on the market today to understand how much your house is worth. And you still have to be conscious if you're working with someone who's getting financing, if the appraiser is going to believe that that's what your home is worth, right? So I believe one of the biggest mistakes is just the sellers in their head thinking what they believe their home is worth versus them truly understanding what it would go for, right? Another, mistake sellers would make is many of them in today's market, they don't feel that they need to do anything to a home. They're like, it's a hot seller's market. It's going to sell anyway. I don't need to do anything. Everything is moving fast. But I would say you don't have to do everything, but you still want someone to come into your house and envision themselves living there. And that comes with just doing a little bit of tidying up, or maybe just freshening up the paint, or freshening up the floors, or making sure stuff is off the counter and making sure it's neat. So I've seen that in this market lately, where some people are like, I don't want to do anything. And then they wonder why someone got a large above asking versus them getting a smaller above asking. That truly makes a difference today. Yeah.
So it's that whole being realistic, isn't it? If you don't do your piece, then don't expect to benefit from what is happening. What else would you like people to think about, Natasha, as they look at, how about from an investment standpoint? What do you look at for real estate if you're going to be an investor?
Yeah, being an investor, I think when it comes to real estate, before COVID, right, you can go after deals aggressively because there was more houses than there were people. But when you're an investor, I think, one, you have to think about your budget. You always have to think about where you want to have investment property. For me and many of our investors, we like investment properties where some of the top schools are, right? You need to think about, being an investor, do you have money on the side in case something going to happen, right? You can be living in a home, but there could be a new roof that needs to be replaced, a new hot water heater. How are you going to go about managing those expenses while being an investor? The third part, and the mistake many people make, you need to think about if you want to manage the property yourself or put it under property management. I've had investors take on a property, them not realizing, hey, a hot water can be out, a toilet can be clogged up. You have to respond to a tenant. They're paying you rent. So you need to think about if you want to actually be managing the property yourself, or you want to put it under property management. And I get it. If it's your first investment, you probably want to do that. I did that too. I no longer do that anymore. Everything is under property management. And it's something that you really need to consider, because even if you're a landlord, you always want to provide excellent customer service because you want references for your next renter.
Wow. Our time is almost up, Natasha. What have we not talked about that you think is important for our audience to understand or to know about the real estate market and about what you do as a broker?
Yeah, I would say not just about the real estate market. If anybody's in any business, whether it's real estate, being a broker, I think the most important thing for me is about being a leader. I think about myself when I'm selling homes or helping my clients buy homes. I want to be a leader in that perspective of the business. When I say leader, meaning I don't want my clients to have to wonder about when they're purchasing or selling a home with me. You take the initiative. You do the homework, right? It's not just about the sale. You make sure they understand the neighborhoods that they're getting themselves into. You need to make sure that they're aware of amenities that are around them. You need to make sure they understand where the schools are. And it's important to show leadership in the profession, as well as how we work with each other to negotiate deals, especially in this hot market. We have to be conscious that these are people's income and a large purchase. So how we work together as associates and how we work together as being a leader when we help people buy and sell is very, very important to me. Yeah.
So Natasha, if I'm looking from the outside in and I'm looking at a buyer, a seller, and a broker, how do I get a sense as to how it is that you relate buyer, seller, real estate agent to real estate agent? So I know what I'm getting myself into, because I hear you. Some of those relationships might be pretty tough. And so the deal that you're going to get may be compromised as a result.
Yeah, when you say, how do you know what you're going to get? I think from my perspective, what I have done with my clients, and given that the market is so aggressive right now, you have to, one, have a realtor in particular who's very open with communication, right? And someone who also is building a relationship, say if I'm representing a buyer, with the listing agent, right? When we make offers and the offers is accepted, now it's not only me communicating with the buyer and giving them weekly updates, it's also me building a relationship with the lender and the listing agent, making sure we are on top of everything and having weekly conversations about what's happening in the home. What did they commit to fix? Are they getting the repairs done? All that matters. And when you're constantly having those conversations, there's less opportunity for there to be issues in the process than when you just put something on the contract and then just go along with hoping that it happens. And for me, it's very critical that when we're working with buyers and sellers, they understand some of the conversations we've had with a listing agent, and we give them a status on what's happening. And we not afraid to let them know what's not done, because you have to be honest, right? So that people trust you, whether it's a seller or a buyer, and they know every part of the transaction and what's happening. And I found when we do that, people are more comfortable and they feel like they are part of the process and they feel like they're actually involved. And that's made a big difference, Lois.
Wow. You know what, Natasha, our time is up. And one of the things that you've talked about that I really like, that resonates with me, is that piece of looking at really connecting with people, connecting at a level where it's, let me introduce you to the neighbors so that you get a sense for, is this really where you want to be? And that's a level of customer service that you don't often see. So I just really appreciate that perspective of yours and for sharing it with the audience. I think for me, it's a new box I'll put on my checkoff list if I work with a realtor, because that was not one that I had there before. But I think what a beautiful, beautiful idea.
Yeah, and I find it refreshing. I mean, it's really crazy. My husband thinks it's funny, but my clients also find it interesting because if they're in town and they're with me, I said, let's walk over to the neighbors. They were like, I don't think we can do that. Yeah, we'll just knock on the door. Hey, I'm the agent representing the buyer. This is the buyer. I want to introduce them to you. How long have you been in the neighborhood? What do you like about it? And believe it or not, the neighbors tell you everything that's going on in the neighborhood, Lois. So it's always been interesting because then we're like, yeah, we really like this neighborhood. Oh, they're going to be really nice neighbors. So I think it's also broken the ice between the neighbors, because a lot of times people are worried about who's going to live next to them. And if they've gotten a chance to meet them, I've had neighbors volunteer information, volunteer to help the movers, volunteer to introduce them to the board, the homeowners association, all because I took that initiative to do an introduction, and it makes a big difference.
Incredible. You are wonderful, Natasha. Thank you so much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast. And for those of you who are listening, we will also have information about Natasha in the show notes so you can get a hold of her. But thank you, Natasha, for your time today.
Thank you, Lois. Appreciate it so much. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
You are welcome. And for those of you who are listening, remember to also visit our website at buildtomorrow.com with the number 2, and also our social media sites as well. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.